Thank you. Mrs. Allman, could we have the roll call, please?
Mrs. Britton?
Here.
Mr. Cook?
Here.
Mr. Deschaux?
Here.
Mr. DeLauder?
Here.
Mr. Eifert?
Here.
Mr. Emig?
Here.
Mrs. Herman?
Here.
Mrs. Maley?
Here.
Mr. Rawhauser?
Here.
9 present.
Thank you. First up are our presentations. We'll start with Mrs. Kroom with the revised 2020-2021 school calendar.
All right, so while Amy pulls up the presentation, I am asking the board to consider allowing me to adjust the school calendar for this school year. And I have the reasons for it, and I'll share that in a minute. There we go. Okay. So as you know, the school calendar was made way back when, last year, when we were in the building project, and it has served us really well. So it has been a great start to the school year. However, with COVID, with the building project, with the number of the things going on around, I'm asking the board to consider allowing us to change it. So Amy, you wanna? So one of the things I'm asking to do is that you'll remember that we have strategically placed about 3 or 4 3-hour early dismissals on Fridays in the calendar for the sole purpose of professional development and data analysis for teachers. So I am asking to take those out. And I'm also asking the board, I also would like to, Wednesday before Thanksgiving was a holiday and Monday after Thanksgiving is a holiday, and I would like to remove them as well, and I'll share with you in a minute what happens to them. All right, so I would like to adjust the calendar to provide for additional deep cleaning, teacher preparation and planning, and building project finishes. So as you are all aware, you know, we're getting to the end of the building projects and the buildings look great, but we knew the whole time that there was still going to be work done, needing to be done through this school year. So part of the calendar I'm proposing would allow us to do some additional work. Also, with teaching online, and as we know, about 25% of our families have chosen to be online, teachers really are taxed in the classroom with teaching in front of the kids in front of them and the students at home. And I think it's really important that we provide them the preparation time they need, additionally any professional development they need, and again, that data analysis time to look at the data from the students to be able to plan appropriately. So first, what I'm asking is to create a number of online instruction days. And the ones that fall before Thanksgiving are September 30th, October 21st, and November 11th, which is a half day. That is conferences, and I'm asking for that morning to be an online instruction day, and then we have parent conferences in the afternoon on that Wednesday, Wednesday evening, all day Thursday, Thursday evening, and then Friday teachers get the payback day from Wednesday night and Thursday. Now, what is really special about these days is that the teachers will prepare independent student work for students those days, and we would really explain that to parents. These would be days where work would be posted, students would work, there could be video instruction, but these days would be the students working independently and the teachers would plan for that. Then I'm asking for the week before Thanksgiving, the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, where Wednesday was a holiday, and the week after Thanksgiving, Monday through Friday, to be full online instruction with a teacher. Now, this would be the teachers instructing, Zooming, face-to-face online. And the purpose for doing that for those 2 full weeks is, number one, I think if you've watched any of the news about the college students and the outbreaks in the colleges, most of the colleges have changed their calendar to bring students back home to parents over Thanksgiving. And then they stay home until January. So number one, it allows our buildings to sit for 2 whole weeks and be deep cleaned. It allows a 14-day self-quarantine for those that traveled over Thanksgiving and for those college students that come home. So for example, you know, a lot of people haven't been traveling through this. So come Thanksgiving, they want to go to their family. They want to go lots of places. I know I'm going to Ohio. Come back from Thanksgiving, that gives an entire week to self-quarantine before coming back. So college students will have been home now for a nice chunk of time, and people can be back from being away. And again, they're teaching those days. That is not independent work. The teachers get up, they have their classes all of those days. So they are teaching, except everyone is home. Everyone is home. No educators are in the building. The only ones in the building would be our own staff to deep clean the buildings, let the building sit, and probably some building projects going on. So again, we want to let the building sit for 2 weeks and just kind of settle down, let everything kind of get out of there. Allow for 14 days of self-quarantine for those who travel at Thanksgiving and have those college kids coming home, and again, to allow our staff to complete any post-building project items at that time. Then I'd like to add 12/23, going back to the rationale for the online instruction days, 12/23 as one of those teacher prep days, January 27th, February 17th, March 10th, March 24th, and I think that's wrong. It's not, I'm sorry, that's not the 31st. And I have the calendar, I'll show you. I know that's not right. And again, that will be all independent work. Those weeks are 3 weeks apart from each other. Those are all 3 weeks apart from each other. So removing 2 vacation days from Thanksgiving allows us to bump the last day of school to the 4th. So if we can snow day and everything goes according to plan, graduation can be the 5th, which would be very nice. But notice I did put makeup days from the 7th to the 18th. Those are for in case we have a situation where we can't do online instruction and have to close school. So what might cause that? If we would have an outbreak of illness, we won't have teachers to have to close a building. We don't have teachers to instruct that day, or we have numerous sick days a particular day. We don't have enough to instruct the kids that day. They would have to be makeup days. So those are the only time that we would need to use those makeup days. But we don't think we should have to use them for snow at all. We should be really good with bad weather. Okay, Amy. Okay, so Amy, you want to pull the calendar up for me? And I'll take you through it.
And Tracy, you had March 10th and 31st as online days on the
Oh,
calendar.
is that, do I have that on there? Okay.
Not the 24th.
Not the 24th, so I must have snuck that in there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's highlighted. I mean, you have 2 days in March highlighted.
Yeah. Amy and I, we do a revision, we print it out, we do a revision, we share it with people, we do a revision.
Oh, okay.
Okay, there we go. Okay. All right, so let's jump to September.
I can't move it. I can't move it over.
It doesn't want to get smaller.
No.
There we go. There we go. All right. So the first change would be September. So we did have, I don't even remember what day it was. We did have a Friday 3-hour early dismissal somewhere in September. So took that out and made the first planning and prep day Wednesday, September 30th. Okay. And then October.
How did you get over there?
There we go. So I think it's 3 weeks later, October 21st would be one of those days. And then if you see November, that really would be an online day. However, we start conferences that afternoon. So that really does need to be independent work. And then we have conferences that evening, Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon, Thursday night. And then Friday is just a professional development day. That is a makeup day. And then if you notice the Thanksgiving break, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday would be online instruction, again, full teacher involvement, and the week after Thanksgiving as well would be. The other reason, and I've mentioned this before, is that if we are lucky enough to get to that point in our school year where we have not had to close a school or a class, to shut it down, do 2 weeks of online instruction, kind of get everyone into that mode again, making sure, we're good and the teachers are good and the kids are good at it. That would be a great time to practice it. And then in December, notice we make the 23rd one of those days. November, December look kind of short, but honestly, at the beginning of flu season and cold season, because I do want to remind you, the conversation we just had, kids are going to be sent home for all of these symptoms. And so that might not be a bad time to be, not in school as much as possible. All right, so then we get back into January, and you notice that the 18th stays a holiday, but it is a makeup day. So hopefully we won't need that, and that can say a holiday. Wednesday the 27th is one of those prep days. February 15th is a holiday, and the 17th is one of those prep days. And then March is the 10th and the 31st, and then April 14th. And then that's it for the year because we start PSSAs and Keystones. And then again, that bumps us back to the last day of school being Friday the 4th. And then Monday the 7th is an in-service day for teachers. So that is what I am proposing. Any questions? Thoughts, comments?
So I have a question regarding mainly the holiday, Thanksgiving holiday, that if families have already prepared to do traveling, and now those holidays are taken away from the kids. Yes, they can do the online as long as they have a Wi-Fi access somewhere. But if they don't, and like the 30th, typically first day of hunting season, I don't know if that's still the case this year, but if that is the case, are we going to make any amendments to what is considered a legal or an illegal day for students if they've already had plans and parents already had plans and it's impossible for them to then do an online?
Yeah, so first, we really have adjusted our attendance thoughts this year. We have to be flexible with attendance. So we know we have to be flexible from the first day school started. So yes, we can be flexible. However, I will tell you, I brought this calendar to DAEA, and the co-president is a hunter. I think he's a hunter himself. And I think, now I could be all wrong, he shared with me that this used to be the first day of buck and is no longer.
Correct. Saturday is now.
Right.
That's what I wasn't
Right.
sure. I thought that might be
Now,
the
I'm
case.
sure that won't stop the hunters, right? But like I said, now let me tell you something though that's a little different, is that if a parent chose, while we're in school and parents chose for their kids to go online, they have to log on during the times of the day. That was their choice. However, when we shut down then, or if we have to shut down school due to a COVID situation, we can't expect that, because we might have students who are with other family members who don't have internet, so we know we have to adjust that anyway. So there's a difference between our expectations from when they choose it or when we choose it. Does that make sense? So we will be very flexible and work completion in that. Yeah, we will be very flexible with that.
Tracy, while as you're talking about that, I was thinking about this. I know in years past, obviously, our attendance affected our overall scores from the state level. And I know we're being flexible. Is the state being flexible with their policies as well?
Well,
concerning?
what our issues kind of were of our own making. We were coding things like if a kid came in late and we didn't catch that, the kid was absent, and we fixed all of that. So as long as we stayed an hour and we are calling something a day or not a day, the state's fine with all of that. So we already know what we're doing for these days, and we say this is a day. So for example, we've already determined that if a student gets up in the morning and just says, I don't want to go to school today, I'm just going to go online, that's an absentee, because they can't just choose to do that. But if a student gets up in the morning and doesn't feel well, they can go online. That counts as them being present. Does that make sense? So that can be our process and procedure for that. So we can definitely keep an eye on that. And I do think the state's going to be very flexible this year.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Tracy, in I think it was January, you said on the 18th you have as a makeup day. And I thought you said a snow makeup day, but weren't we going to try to not have snow makeup days? So, because we can just say, okay, everybody stay home and do online.
Right. This calendar was built last September before we had FID, any of that. And the reason I kept those days is exactly what Steve's talking about. If people already knew, those were 2 vacation days, so they're both vacation days. I didn't want to take all the vacation days out. I felt like there were no vacation, like I'm cruising away, taking all the days out, making last day of school of June 1st, and I thought, wait a minute, we still are in school. So I thought it was still important to keep vacation days there. But I did have it as a makeup day. It was before, so I left it as a makeup day. In case we do have a day to make up for some reason, we at least have a bumper day in there. Any other questions?
Anybody?
All right, that is on for your approval tonight.
Okay. Dr. Weisling, Athletic Health and Safety Plan update.
Good evening, everyone. I'm back for my monthly update. Amy, if you want to go ahead and give us my first slide there, please. Yeah, if you recall, certainly we were required back in June to come up with a plan to allow for our summer workouts. And along the way, different governors' guidances were provided to us as school districts. And so with that, in July, we were asked to follow the template that the school health and safety plan was going to follow. And they consisted of domains. So tonight I'm going to focus on the domain of social distancing and the safety protocols, because what I'm asking, proposing tonight or asking is, now that there's a new governor's guidance on spectators, I would really like to have the conversation talk about allowing spectators. So if you look here in July, from the governor's perspective at that time, we were given some guidance that was identifying, and we were in the red, yellow, and green phase conversations at that time. And so the guidance in July that I provided to you for an update was that if we were in the yellow phase, we couldn't have groups or gatherings of more than 25, but if we were in green, we could have up to 250. And he also added that those gatherings could not exceed 50% of the occupancy of that venue. Then in August, additional guidance came out, and then that's where it changed to 25 total for an inside event or up to 250 individuals for an outside event. They also kept the 50% occupancy of that venue, okay? And at that time, the guidance was clear in defining that for sports and extracurricular activities at our school level, that was limited to the athletes, the students, the coaches, officials, and staff only. And no spectators were a part of that guidance, okay? In addition to other items in the guidance that fell underneath the social distancing component were that they were recommending, restricting, and limiting access to your facilities to outside organizations. And at that time, I proposed to do that here to help us mitigate and maintain what we could and figure out what we were dealing with. And that was part of the update that you approved at that time. And also it was recommended that you limit or consider what you're going to be doing for concession stands, because again, that was a time where exchange of currency, grouping people together, touching different surfaces, sharing of things and like that. So that was also another thing that we decided that you had given your approval on at that time, that concession stands would remain closed until further notice. But if we were to be able to open up concession stands, then the guidance of the governor is clearly directed individuals to go to the guidance for businesses in the restaurant industry. So there are a document there that helps us as concession stands to do that correctly. So the most recent governor's guidance came out on September 2nd. And as you can see there, it is identifying that spectators now may attend sporting events, but spectators do count towards the statewide large gathering limits, 25 or fewer people for indoor events, 250 or fewer for outdoor, and must follow the universal face covering order and social distancing guidance for arriving, attending, and departing. So at this time, I am approaching you, coming to you this evening, recommending and asking that you consider allowing spectators to attend our athletic and extracurricular events. Regarding the concession stands are there's another recommendation in the guidance that concession stands or other food must adhere to the guidance for businesses in the restaurant industry, just the same as it was in the August. At this time, to allow us to safely start our students in secondary, since we haven't had a chance to do that yet, as well as we are just now getting ready because of the delay of our athletic season, we're just now getting ready to get involved with our athletic events. I would like to see how we can do those things successfully, and then when it comes to the consideration of concession stands, allow us to get those events started, and then when the district permits, after evaluating and assessing the success or problems that encounter with those, then we would introduce the operations of concession stands. To help develop this plan, or to consider the best way to do this, we have different venues now. We have a stadium turf. We have a new high school turf that's over behind the new building, which we just were able to access that this week due to the building project. So that's been a wonderful addition to our participation. And we have our gyms right now. Our secondary gyms have not been able to be used. So for any indoor preseason, we've been using North Salem. So we have to consider, the cleaning of the things like that, or where we can have the best management of our venues. So I did my best in trying to get as many of our varsity athletic and our band events, as many as possible, scheduled at the stadium, which is the outdoor venue that we have that does permit the largest gathering. As you can see, we're planning on live streaming these events. We're working on getting that finalized this week. That we'll be able to get out to our community, the Dover YouTube channel. In the stadium stands, we'd be able to mark those stands to identify the social distancing spacing requirements. Face coverings would be required at all times for all spectators, which is part of the guidance. And we would be also, to maximize our number of individuals based on that 250 limits, I would also be asking that we're only allowing home spectators. Regarding the concession stands, as stated before, when the district would permit, we would be able to open up our concession stands. And like I stated, there is a guidance for businesses in the restaurant industry which helps to give us limitations, expectations, recommendations how to do that safely. When it comes to our indoor events, of course, we have that 25 limit. Well, right now for the fall, in the fall athletic events, that's for our volleyball program that is limited to the indoor. The league, the YAIAA League, has come out with guidelines that help to define and give some directions on how schools can maintain that 25 limit, but also have the contest, because that includes the number of student athletes, the coaches, the officials, things like that. I would like to consider, and when we are able to use the new gym, okay, right now we have to wait for that occupancy, and they're currently putting in the bleachers. So our first volleyball event is scheduled for Thursday, the 24th of September, and I'm not sure if we'll be able to use that venue yet just because of occupancy. So we'll have to look, I checked with Mrs. Huffnagel today, probably use the middle school gym for that event. However, when we do have access to our new high school volleyball or gymnasium, we have that second-story track, okay? So I would like to consider the possibility of looking into having that be a separate space, because some of the guidance and language does identify that if you have venues large enough that you can separate into separate areas, they do permit multiple events to go on. Now, they give an example of like the facilities where you can have a divider drop down and identify two different courts and things like that. I would like to see if it would be possible that we would be able to use the second-story track and the bleachers up there as a possible second venue that would allow for spectators. Again, as I talked about, we did the best that we could, because we do have some schedule conflicts, because our stadium turf is the only field that we have that is lined for football games. So whenever we have all levels of our football competitions scheduled, and again, that's because we're scheduling with the other school districts in our league, we're set to that schedule. So that does limit the access to that for some of our varsity sports teams. But what I've provided there to you is a listing of the scheduled events that we could have that are already at the high school stadium based on the team or the activity there. That doesn't mean that's the only events that they have. For some of them it is, like for football, for example, that is our only football field. So they are the only home events numbers that we have. They do have some away events as well. But for some of the other athletic teams, the soccer, field hockey, some of those events will still have to take place at the high school turf because those dates conflict with scheduled football games at some of the levels. So, we're here this evening to talk about the potential opportunity to allow spectators at our events.
So,
Questions?
so with the, you said the events that you had planned on the stadium at the high school because it's the biggest venue. So
Yes.
that was the last list that was up
Yes.
there. So, I don't know, let's take.
Bring it back up.
Let's just take soccer, for
Yes.
example. So they have, it looks like boys varsity soccer gets 4 games on the stadium turf. So do they have other home games that they're going to play over
At the high school.
at the high school?
turf.
And those you are saying will not be able to have that many spectators because of the type of venue it is?
That's exactly right.
Okay,
The
so
ven-
when they play in the stadium, we can do the 250.
Yes.
When they're over there at the high school, there's not the space for that because there's not the bleachers and the whole thing.
That's
So
right.
there's
The
no
occupancy,
spectators. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
the 50% occupancy or the 250 maximum, it's the
Okay.
less of those two.
So as
So-
long as they're in the stadium, you're proposing the 250 people so that we
Yes,
can have
yes,
spectators.
yes. But that, remember, that does include the athletes,
Right.
the coaches, the
Yep.
officials, all the game help, everybody who's in that stadium. So that does, once we take that into consideration and we are calculating that to determine the roster size and in communication with our other visiting teams, we are talking about limiting the size of rosters for those athletic programs that have the large rosters, right? So we're working together with that to limit that so that it could potentially afford the largest number of spectators per venue. And that
So
will
you don't
vary from district to district, excuse me.
Okay, so you don't have an estimate that you're looking at in terms of, okay, well, at a home football game where, you take all those people, all the
Yes.
necessary people into
Yep.
account,
Yeah.
I mean,
We are-
40 parents or
we are-
40,
We are hoping to provide 2 tickets per participant. That would include the football team and the cheerleaders, because the cheerleaders are also considered the participants.
And
So
we're
if it's
also going to ask the away team for football to limit who travels.
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
So if it's a varsity football game, are the JV players going to be, are they normally there with the varsity team?
They
Just-
are normally there.
Aren't they normally like
Yes.
dressed on the sidelines?
Yes.
So you're saying that you're going to ask them not to be there?
At this point, we've looked at the number 50. In our league, we looked at the number of 50 being participants and coaching staff as an acceptable limit.
Okay,
Our program by itself with coaches and participants, varsity and JV, is 57.
okay.
So, like, for example, we are traveling to William Penn this Friday, and so I had a conversation with Dr. Fitch down there, their athletic director and student services, and asked him, because that's what we want to do. The home team has the ability to regulate how many they will permit based on what their needs are and what their size of roster is. And I contacted him, I said, hey, would you like us to only send 50? With everybody included, even our managers and coaches, we have 57. He said, just send the 57. So in our thoughts, in our conversations, even for home, we were considering keeping all the players who are on that team on the sideline for our home event.
Okay.
Question for you. With the 2 ticket per parent rule, what do you do when the parent brings the mom, the dad, and a 5-year-old? Are you letting the 5-year-old in?
No, we would strongly, we would want to make it very clear.
Who's going to be making sure that 5-year-old doesn't come in?
We'll have the managers, we have
Yeah.
game managers at the games.
Will they
So
have
at
to
the
Whoever's
ticket
taking the,
booth, who's
whoever's taking the
actually
ticket,
stopping?
yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have the, not the ticket booth open, but they'll still have to come through the gate and hand a ticket.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
will have a physical ticket?
Yes.
'Cause I'm
Yeah,
thinking
yes,
like,
we're gonna give them a
Yes.
physical
okay,
ticket.
'cause
Yes.
like you got
Yeah.
divorced parents and they each
Yeah,
have step
no,
parents and you got 4
no.
people, so
Right.
they'll have a ticket, they'll have to
We're
fight
gonna
it out.
hand them a
Yes.
physical ticket
Yes.
for each game.
Gotcha.
Yes.
And there is somebody actually saying, sorry.
Yes.
You can't
Yes.
come.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And
And
you're
you-
prepared to have those fights every week it happens?
We're hoping that we have community members and families that understand that we're just doing the best that we can to try to provide an opportunity for our students to participate. Now, I'm not naive. I know this is an emotional thing, believe me. I've said before, I've got 3 of my own children who have participated in these. I've got one who is still in high school participating and is in the same boat. So as a parent, I completely understand the emotional connection with this. I validate that 100%. But we want to try to make this the best situation, most memorable, provide the opportunity. We want to discourage that. We're going to do everything to try to support and understand that. But we want the decisions to be made by the adults to allow that to happen.
What about senior night?
Yes, we are already planning to do the senior nights as early as possible, almost in all of our very first home events. And we're getting guidance on it. As a league, we're talking about how we're doing that so that we can also still maintain and do it probably pre-game. And that way we're limiting who's in there, bring people in at a time, bring them out. But we're trying to organize those to occur here very early in the season in the event that something happens that we don't get through an entire season.
And obviously, this is something that can be changed. That's me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's in my mouth. This is something that can be changed if we do end up having problems. So if parents
Absolutely.
start attending and there's too many issues and we have to say, we gave you a shot and this is what happened, we can revise that.
Absolutely,
But
yes.
I'm hopeful that
I'm-
it won't happen.
Yes, Mrs. Mealy, I am too.
Okay.
Question.
Yes, Steve.
Is it pretty unanimous across the board that all schools are limiting their spectators to only home spectators?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
that wouldn't be a surprise to somebody to go to another district and find out they can't get in.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
And we have been meeting regularly. In fact, we have another meeting. We had a meeting last week. We're meeting again tomorrow with some updates of our return to competition guidelines. And we are frequently sending our emails back and forth. Who's doing this? Those kind of things. And everybody at this point is operating in only those that are even still allowing spectators, because there are some districts who are not going to be permitting spectators, because it's become a local decision. But those that are going to be allowing spectators are limiting it to their home only.
So I could see this happening. I don't know if it will for sure, but I could see it happening. You could have some parents that want to go and know they're not going to get in, but try to view things from vicinity, outside the fences, outside the gates. Do we have a plan or a policy regarding that? Are we going to allow that, or is that something that, they won't be allowed to do that? Just so parents know what to be expected.
We'll put that in the communication. We will also be having Northern Regional Police helping to monitor that. Again, we'll do the most communication we can to encourage the decisions that allow us to continue to do this, if you agree to allow the spectators to occur.
Are there any schools that are saying if you have fans, they're not coming to play us? Do we have any?
If we have fans,
If we allow
if we allow spectators, they will not travel to us, no.
So there's, okay.
I have not heard that be a criteria that school districts are choosing to not come or travel to an away event because the home team is permitting spectators. No, that has not come up as a concern. And there are 23 schools in our York Adams League, and again, we do as much communication as we can to remain consistent, to be respectful of those that we compete against, to have similar conditions. But when it comes to the spectators, what's happening is that size of rosters, size of programs, size of facilities are having an impact on some school districts' ability to remain underneath that 250. So it's really coming down to everybody supporting each other, but some are making some decisions to allow spectators and some are not.
Any other questions for Troy? So what you are approving tonight is just the updated athletic plan, and what we did is we just pulled the spectator statement out
Yes.
and just don't even have it in there. I think we just took it out.
Yes.
And that statement of concessions will be allowed when the district allows it. So that's up to us then.
Tracy, I have a, sorry.
Yeah.
So
I'm like,
I have
where's
a
that
quick
coming from?
question. Those events that are happening on the new turf.
Yes.
Are there going to be guidelines sent out to parents on the capacity and, you know, everything that's going to happen for those events that are occurring over there as opposed to?
Yeah, in fact, we've talked about that as a venue, and what's the likelihood that we can maintain. Again, it's the 50% occupancy or 250, which is, and we have to go with the lower amount. And so when we were over there looking at that venue, and currently we have two small sets of aluminum bleachers, Mr. Nelson helped with this, and I sought out some occupancy kinds of information from Scott Cousin, our architect, and it looks like each of our, and so occupancy is determined based on seating, okay, not like the size of the playing surface or the field. So when we looked at that, we looked like we were able to fit approximately 40 individuals on each of the two aluminum pieces, okay? So 100% would be 80 people, right? And then we looked at possibly social distancing some people who would sit right along the sideline like we do, watch, you know, games in our bag chairs and things like that. So we were estimating maybe occupancy would be close to about 100. So then, if you take the 50% occupancy of that, then that means that that venue would afford 50 is your limit. Within that 50, then you've got to consider the 11 on the field, the 22 that are on the field, right, for each team, the coaches, the officials. So when you look at it that way, you start narrowing down. There's really not a lot of opportunity for spectators over at that site.
So are you going to just go with the, do you know, like, are you going to go with an occupancy, or are you just going to, for the sake of not having to deal with the, you know, the task of picking who gets to come in and who doesn't, if you're down to that little amount of people?
Yeah, I mean, if we're down to, say, 10 individuals, if that's what our numbers come to, we could certainly consider giving the team who's participating that night 10 tickets, and then determine
We haven't, with that field, just haven't gotten too far into the weeds yet, because
Yeah.
we have to look at all the different sports for that one.
Yeah.
The high school was so much easier, because football's really the only one we have to think through. Soccer's not gonna have 250, field hockey's not gonna have 250.
Traditionally, they have
traditionally
not. So we're
there.
based.
So we don't even think we need to give them tickets, because I don't think they're gonna send that many. But we haven't gotten that far into looking at those. Football was the one we were concerned about.
And Tracy, you might say we might not need to give them tickets, but so here's something to think about too. My 9th grader just discovered that she will not be allowed to walk around at football games on Friday night. So if you say, oh, there's a soccer game,
Good.
everybody's going to want to show up to that because they can congregate with their friends.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
we still have to
We
have
didn't
tickets.
think about that, so yeah, we will have to do tickets, yeah.
Sorry, Claire. Didn't mean to.
No, that's okay. Yeah, and in our surveying, you know, my surveying of the other districts this week, and just even getting some in through today, asking about using tickets at other venues in addition to just their varsity football. The majority of them, now I didn't get responses from everybody, everyone but one who said they were giving out 3 vouchers or passes because of the size of their programs. Every other school that did respond said they were giving out 2. 2 to every sport, regardless of what the number ends up being.
Right, makes it fair.
You see what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Like, even if it's a smaller program, smaller roster, those players, those student participants receive 2 tickets. So that's another way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Troy?
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, now we have our public comment period. This is a 30-minute period for items on or off of tonight's agenda. We do have some individuals lined up in our lobby waiting to take their turn to speak, and we will offer them the opportunity to do that. Again, 3-minute period, and please state your name and address for the record.
Caitlin Staub, 2512 Danielle Drive.
And Caitlin, I'm assuming this is your mother?
Yep.
And she has permission to speak, correct? Okay, and could you state your name for the record as well then? Thank you. Okay.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Staub. I am a senior and a cheerleader for the football team. I am here to speak to you all on behalf of allowing spectators at football games. My proposal includes senior parents of players and cheerleaders. I have cheered all 4 years in high school, and every season so far, my parents have been in the stands watching me. I do not want this one to be any different because the fans and the crowd make the Friday night football games so much more enjoyable. The purpose of cheerleaders is not only to cheer on the football players, but also to entertain and lead the crowd. It will not be the same if the parents are not allowed to be in attendance. Also, every year, my mom has taken pictures of the cheerleaders, football players, and band members in action. It brought me to great sadness, pondering the thought of my mom not having the opportunity to capture those most memorable moments experienced for one last season. I never would have thought for a split second that last year could have been the last time my parents had the leisure of watching me cheer out on the track. There are only 4 years in high school, 4 short years that fly by before you can even blink an eye. I expected to have all 4 years cheering on that track with the stands filled with fans. It is an indescribable feeling watching the fans react to the football game when the cheerleaders' backs are turned to the field because they are busy cheering to them. There are many players and cheerleaders that decide to not continue pursuing their sport after high school. Senior year is not just the most important year for the players, but the parents as well. A parent is alongside their child every step of the way as they grow up and develop into a young adult. The reason for senior night is to recognize the accomplishments of both the players and parents. Walking across the football field, getting announced, and taking those last moments on the home football field is a once-in-a-lifetime feeling a child will never get back. I cannot even imagine how different and uncomfortable the experience of that would be without my parents by my side or in the stands. In addition, it crosses my mind questioning who will be walking across the field too. Will there be grandparents or siblings sitting in the stands to cheer me on for one last time walking across the field? The reality we are living in today is peculiar to say the least. The power has been placed in the school board members' hands to give the seniors what they deserve. The seniors have worked so hard throughout their entire careers to be recognized for their accomplishments. Again, I ask the school board members to think hard, but also fast about their decision and how it will affect everyone of the Dover community. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. You've gotten to be an expert at this, Mrs. Shakumi. Good evening. This is a 3-minute period. If you could state your name and address for the record.
Sure. I'm sorry. I feel like you can't hear me with this on, but good evening. My name is Kathy Miller. I live on 970 North Circle Drive. And first of all, I would like to say thank you to Dr. Wiesling, hiding over there, because thank you for bringing this to the board. I think it's so important that we do have spectators at all events for all children. So I want to say thank you. And I also want to say, I want to commend the band just publicly, because I know they have put together an awesome program. I'm not part of the band. My children are sports players, but I saw what they proposed, and it's a really well thought out plan that I think a lot of other activities can follow. Like I said, my oldest son plays soccer on the high school soccer team. My youngest will play in the middle school soccer team and is also a wrestler. In high school soccer, we have With the teams, refs, staff, volunteers, we figure 80 to 90 people in the stadium. This would allow for 160 spectators following Governor Wolf's guidelines. And I just want to throw out there a little bit some of the information that was brought to attention yesterday, that there's, the federal judge did rule that some of these numbers are unconstitutional. I don't know where that lies with the school district. I did not see if he got a stay today on that, but that was a federal judge's ruling today. So something we also need to think about. I don't think we've ever had 160 spectators at soccer. I would love that, but I don't think we've ever had that. And nonetheless, we can sell tickets, and we can practice social distancing, and we can do whatever it takes to follow the rules so that we can watch our children participate in that activity that they love. There is no greater joy as a parent than watching my children play soccer and wrestle. I live for it. I live it for it on the weekends. I live it for high school. And there's no greater joy for me. Like I said, we are all adults, and we want nothing more to see them participate in the activity they love. And I'm confident we can follow the rules. And I'm confident there's a lot of smart people in this room that we can come together and figure out how to do it. I will help. I will help you guys. If I can help, I will help, because I will speak on behalf of the soccer team. I will help sell tickets if we need to. I will be the social distancing police and make sure we all do what needs to happen, because it means that much. I don't think if we are given the opportunity, I don't think we're going to have rogue parents out there watching from the sidelines. So I know I'm running out of time, oh my gosh. Only allowing 25 people, though, for an indoor activity, in my opinion, is ridiculous. The majority of all these events take place in a high school gym or auditorium that can only house, 600 to 1,000 people. We have classrooms that can house 18 to 21 students at desks in a space that is a fraction of the size of a high school gym. But for us not to allow an indoor sports or activity with spectators in the stands that can easily social distance more than the required 6 feet is crazy to me. I think we really need to develop spectator attendance guidelines that are specific to our school and to the sport, based on building capacity and percentages, not some random number, kind of like what you talked about this evening. I think that's great. So I respectfully ask you, I know I'm out of time, I'm sorry, but I respectfully ask that you stand up for our children tonight and vote yes to spectators, as well as develop this personal spectator attendance plan for Dover Area High School and for the middle school, indoor and outdoor events, so that all children can participate, the parents can watch. There's ways we can work together and do this. And we can do this based on facts and capacity percentages. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. And I also wanted to thank you for your remarks about the Music Boosters organization tonight, too. They have worked hard on that since July.
Honestly,
appreciate that.
I was very impressed. And I think that's a great foundation for all of the other activities in the district.
Thank you.
We all can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. That's it. According to Mr. Perkins, we're getting the thumbs up in the corner over there. So thank you, everybody. Okay, we'll move on to our board president's communication. We did have an executive session tonight to discuss some personnel matters, as well as the grievance, which is on tonight's agenda. So with that, we will move right into the grievance. And at this time, I'll entertain a motion to deny the DAE SPA grievance, step number 4.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or discussion? Okay, hearing none. Mrs. Allman?
It still says motion to approve/deny. Shouldn't that be changed?
Go right down below it, the smaller print.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
And the motion carries. Okay, now I'll move on to the approval of our minutes this evening. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the August 18th, 2020 board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or discussion? Mrs. Allman? And the motion carries. Next, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the August 18th, 2020 board meeting.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or discussion? Mrs. Ullman? And the motion carries. Okay, now we'll move on to our consent agenda. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve all items listed under tonight's consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mrs. Kroom, did you want to walk down through the agenda and touch on a few of these items?
Sure. So just a couple of things. Again, approval of the calendar is on there. We have an addendum to the standing orders. We receive them every year, but this year, a lot of them dealt with COVID, and so there have been some CDC changes in the last couple weeks that we needed to adjust our standing orders. We are asking the board to consider raising some substitute pay for subs who are with us a little bit longer than a day-to-day sub due to a COVID situation where a teacher might not be able to be in school. So we are asking just for some additional money for the subs. Continuing down, we have two policies we're asking you to approve tonight. Policy 201, admission of students. This follows the law that is requiring students to start school at 6 and they can't quit until 18. We are asking that students have to prove that they've taken kindergarten. If they don't, they will be enrolled in kindergarten and we will assess them to see if their skills do match first grade. And the second one is electronic devices. It prohibits students from recording Zoom sessions while they're at home learning online. And then just another one is that you're going to approve the budget timeline tonight. Any questions about any others?
Tracy, just and I asked this earlier about the videotaping of Zoom sessions. So they're not allowed to videotape them if they are at home. What about photographs? Are they allowed to take
I'm
pictures?
gonna look into that. I
Okay.
need to look into that. I'm not sure about that, but they can't tape Zoom and then put it on social media. Those are the things that it doesn't allow them to do.
Okay,
So I will I'll get back to you about that one.
okay,
This came right from PSBA.
gotcha.
Question about policy 201, the kindergarten. Just jogged my memory, and I was thinking, kindergarten is not required by our
No.
state, correct?
Right.
Is there any kind of legal implications if we require someone to go through kindergarten if they're at the age that the parents may want them in first grade, since kindergarten isn't required as a legal course before first grade?
It's not required unless if you've established that as the starting point in your district, and then you need to provide that to everybody once you've established it. I'm not aware of anything that would preclude you from doing what is being proposed through this policy.
And again, if a parent's adamant, we'll enroll them in kindergarten and do a social emotional assessment and an academic assessment and see if they have the skills necessary for first grade.
Would they potentially change to
Yes.
first grade then right
Yes.
away if
Yeah.
they do meet
Yes.
those criteria?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, Mrs. Almond? And the motion carries. Okay, my apologies. I skipped a vote back up at item number 5, so if you could go back up to that on your agendas. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to elect the following PSBA officers as listed. We have President-elect David Hine of Parkland School District, Vice President Sabrina Backer, Treasurer Michael Gossert of Cumberland Valley, Western at Large Marcia Pleta of Washington School District, Section 2 Advisor Amy Kemick, Ridgeway, Section 4 Advisor Brian Petula, Lackawanna, and Section 6 Advisor Andrea Kristoff of Mount Union. And we also have the Insurance Trust trustees, Michael Facinetto, Bethlehem, Marianne Neal, PSBA past president, and School Board Secretaries Forum, Stephen Scrocky, North Penn, and Tracy Long, Keystone Central. And I apologize to any of those individuals if I botched their names. So do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or discussion? Okay, Mrs. Ullman? And the motion carries. Now we'll go back down to section number 8, our curriculum and professional development category. We do have some independent study requests to approve tonight. So I will entertain a motion to approve independent study requests for credit during the 2020-2021 school year for the list below.
So moved.
Second.
And I will be abstaining because this involves my daughter.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and Mrs. Maley will be abstaining. Questions? Okay, Mrs. Allman? And the motion carries. And Mrs. Maley will have a form for you to sign at the end of the meeting then for the abstain. Okay. Next is our safe and supportive schools category. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the revised district athletic health and safety plan.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or discussion?
A quick question because of some of the things that we talked about. So it does say on page 17 about the limiting of the number of individuals at athletic activity spaces, and it says about the 25 and the 250. Am I in the right place, Dr. Wiesling?
Yes.
Okay. So in light of what we talked about in terms of the other facility, the one that's the turf field that's over at the high school, I mean, if we're not going to, I guess I'm just wondering, okay, if it's worded like this, there are going to be some people who are going to take that as, you know, this is how it's going to be done, so it doesn't matter, you know, we'll bring our lawn chairs. So how do we propose that we're going to avoid some of that confusion?
We're concerned about being too limiting in the plan, and then we want to change our minds, and we can't until we get the plan changed again. Does that make sense? Because one of the things Troy did say is looking into the possibility of allowing spectators once he has numbers for some of those sports. So he just has to communicate very well, very, very well with parents. And again, why he's moved so many of the varsity sports to the football field, you know, to give parents that opportunity.
And that there won't be tickets for sale at any sporting event at all.
Right, absolutely
So
not. Nope, we're not selling any tickets.
They will be given out prior to the game to the athletes themselves.
Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
all right.
Yes, Mrs. Mayor, if I can add, and again, that has been the general trend of those that we're communicating with the league, is
Okay.
handing them directly to the students the night prior to the event or
Okay.
leading up to that event.
Okay, thank you.
What will the communication procedure look like? If parents do have any concern, are they asking the coaches for instruction? Are they coming directly to you? Or is the district putting something out there as a whole? Just so that everybody would know.
Troy is going to put
Yes.
something out.
Yes, to all of that, yes.
He's been,
Yes,
he's been
absolutely.
communicating with parents all along, so.
And certainly, we are putting together the communications for each individual event or sporting team, right? Because there are some, you know, different nuances for each team of what we have to put together, right? For that event to take place from the recommendations. But I'll be communicating to all of the families and the team about their upcoming event, whether it be whether traveling or home, but I'll be making sure that, and that will provide through Skylerts. I'll do that. I'm going to be creating a Dover Athletic Twitter account to be providing updates and things like that, as well as coaches will also have that information directly from me, that if the parents also contact the coach, they'll be able to either answer that or direct them to me or my office.
And I want to share that Troy's been working on this now for 2 months with the changes and the changes back, and the coaches and advisors have been wonderful. Wonderful. They don't want to mess up any kid's season. They are very supportive of everything. Would you not agree? They've been absolutely supportive of everything, and they want this to go off well. So they've been great. So they are going to help communicate as well.
I just wanted to say, from a personal standpoint, the most important thing here for me is that our students are actually getting to play. That's what's most important here. You know, we've got to think of our students and our children first. I would hope and pray that our parents can respect that and not jeopardize this for our kids. I know there's a lot of passion around this. I'm just as passionate. I've got a senior student this year. It's her last year. You know, I want to see her out there. So I just ask for the community's patience and cooperation and all this. We don't want to do anything that jeopardizes these opportunities for our students. So the more you can cooperate with this and cooperate with the regulations that you may or may not agree with all the time, but that's what's getting our kids that opportunity to be out on those fields. So I would just ask for that patience and cooperation as we go forward in the community. Anybody else? Okay, Mrs. Almond. Okay, and the motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to our capital projects area. We do have some change orders to go through tonight. So first we'll talk about our high school change orders. First I'll entertain a motion to approve the high school change orders as follows. Number 9, Lobar Inc. for $6,151. Number 18, Lobar for $9,000. 19 for Lobar at $1,487. 20 for Lobar at $2,663. And number 16 and 17 are York Excavating in the amounts of $14,072 and $13,568. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? We have a second. Okay, Mr. Nelson, could you walk us through these tonight, please?
Yes, I can. Okay, so the first one, number 18, for $9,000 was we put some moisture mitigation system on the gym floor. We couldn't get the moisture in the concrete to get dry enough just because of the humidity and stuff. So to not push off putting the floor down any longer, we decided to go with this additional coating on it so we could get the gym floor down. I don't know if I have these in the same order you read them off. Number 19 for $1,487 was to add a through bolt to several inactive doors so that we could lock them down better. It was kind of missed on the original drawings. Number 20 for $2,663, we had to change a door to a fire rated door. It wasn't specified as fire rated, so we needed to do that to comply with code. Number 9 for $6,151 was additional connections for classroom media, like interactive smartboards and such. Number 17 for York Excavating for $13,568 was we encountered some unsuitable soils at the north entrance to the teacher parking lot and the bus loop. So we thought it was imperative that we make sure we had a good foundation where buses were going to be running over it every single day. So we had to dig out, actually went down 6 feet and put rock in to get a solid footer. And the number 16, York X for $14,072 is actually a combination of about 3 different things. We had some fencing changes back on the multi-purpose field. Once we put it in, the township didn't like it because they thought we were encroaching too close to their easement, which sometimes is not worth the argument. But the other thing was we hit rock when we tried to put our sanitary in, and it was off our site, so we had to make a change for that. That should be all of them, I think.
Okay. Any questions or discussion? Okay, Mrs. Almond. Okay, and the motion carries. Next, we'll move on to our middle school. I'd entertain a motion to approve the middle school change order for ECI construction. This is actually a deduction in the amount of $2,517.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Nelson?
Okay, so this was a little horse trading on my part. We looked at some areas that we had in the contract, which was painting the ceiling exposed structure in room C116, which is the, used to be the old graphics lab. We determined that the ceiling looked in pretty good shape, so probably could forego the painting. We then added painting to some stair risers and rails in one of the stairwells that wasn't supposed to get painted, so we kind of spruced that up, took away from the other area a little bit. And then we deleted painting walls in room D220, which was a storage room. So it's not really going to be seen by too many people. And then there was some flooring in two different rooms that were both small. They were only 200 square feet. We deleted that, and we added cleaning some concrete in room C102 and C103. So we kind of did a little bit taking away and adding, and we ended up with a positive money back on that one.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion on that? Okay, Mrs. Almond? And the motion carries.
So if you're interested, we are 0.00490% change orders on the high school project, and we're 0.0261 on the middle school.
Came prepared with that number this time. You knew that was coming.
Dave,
And
I
then
do
that's
have
an
a-
excellent number, Dave. Thank you.
do have a question for you.
Go ahead.
When we get into situations like you just described and you negotiate, removing something from the contract, do we have any feedback or pushback from contractors that were expecting that to
No.
happen?
Usually not. Usually they understand that, there's things they need to add. There's things that, maybe we can do without. Sometimes they come to us and suggest it. Other times we go to them. Usually I like to involve our architect because I don't want to take something out that is really, we really, really need. But generally it's not a hard, it's not a hard battle at all. They a lot of times they'll approach us with it and say, hey, we really don't think that needs painted. What do you think? So in that case, so.
It's kind of a team
Yeah,
decision.
we work pretty close together.
Good.
So.
Good, thanks.
Thank you. I also just want to take a minute here to thank Mr. Nelson and our administrative team and everybody else who's been involved in getting our buildings ready to open this year. I know the past couple of weeks have been very crazy and strenuous, but quite frankly, it's incredible what you've accomplished in the middle of a pandemic with building an entirely new building and renovating another building, and to have them where they are today. So I just wanted to thank you for all of your efforts and everybody else on our team that's been involved in that process, the custodial staff, the teachers, everybody. It's phenomenal. So thanks for getting our students back. So thank you. Okay, last in this category, I'll entertain a motion to approve the AIA agreement with Crabtree Rohrbal and Associates for the Dover Area High School Property Impact Survey for the highway improvements as per the enclosure.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or discussions on this item?
We maybe have a little explanation on what this is.
So this is an addendum to our original AIA agreement with Crabtree to add these highway improvements to the agreement. So this allowed ELA to do the property impact survey for the highway improvements.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mrs. Benko. Okay, Mrs. Almond. And the motion carries. Okay, next we'll move on to our Unity Council. Mrs. Maley.
Okay, I get to take this off for a couple seconds. All right, so I actually was not able to attend the meeting. I had another meeting that I could not get out of. It looks like the yard signs are in. I don't know if you noticed when you drove in the parking lot, there's a yard sign with a bunch of hands sticking up all together. That's the Unity Council sign. I believe it says we're better when we stand together. Don't quote me on that, but that's the gist of it. And I don't see it written down here in the notes. But we do have signs for sale. We have looks like 50 of them, and we're requesting a $10 donation. So if that's something you'd be interested in, you go to the middle school office, which is currently, is it still currently in the trailer behind?
It isn't
Okay.
until tomorrow. There's a little office to the right when you walk in.
Okay, so they could.
I guess they're in the trailers where it might be.
Okay, all right, if you want to purchase one. All the money will go to Project Harmony, which is a high school organization. Talking about some talking points for discussion for this school year with teachers and students, just kind of giving them some talking points that might be appropriate and guiding them in terms of respectful discussions, and of course modeling that for the students. Talking about starting a virtual book club, a book called Cast by Isabel Wilkerson, that there is a link. The minutes are now on the website, so there is a link for that book if anybody's interested. Talking about Unity Council teach-ins. Is that what they're calling them, teach-ins? So, just coming up with a chair for it, coming up with dates and different topics that we might want to cover. And the first session, we're thinking mid-October, or second half of October, and it would be via Zoom, at least to get us started. But hopefully we'll get some participation with that. And then just talking about September being Suicide Prevention Month. And our next meeting is October 8th at 6 p.m.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Mrs. Maley. Next, we have our Dover Eagle Foundation. I do not have anything new to report this month. Mrs. Cream, anything from you? Okay. All right. York Adams Academy, Ms. Dremig.
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay, Mr. DeLauder, York County School of Technology.
In case I don't remember if I announced it on last month, but they did start back this year. They are utilizing an A/B schedule for their instruction for this year. So that's probably the only significant thing. And then the building project is moving along with a completion date toward the end of the year, as originally planned. That's all I have.
Okay, questions for Mr. DeLauder? Okay, Mrs. Cream and Mrs. Benko, LIU.
Okay. So the state has rolled out a COVID rapid response center that the IUs are all manning, and it's created to support school administrators during this whole COVID-19 situation, because as you can imagine, we have 50 questions a day when things come up, specifically with kids or just situations. So what this is, it's to be a hotline for quick answers. You call this number, which is at the IU, and they have, the state has assigned people directly for just the IU questions. And the idea is to get us answers quicker than we might get through the Department of Health. As you can imagine, and I've said this a million of times, I have a great contact at the Department of Health. She is very responsive, but those people are working every second of every day. They have so many phone calls. They are constantly being inundated. So this is great. It's just quick for quick answers. I haven't used it yet, but I know others who have, and they've been very pleased with it. So the IU's really stepped up with it. We're pleased.
Any questions? Okay, Mr. Rawhauser, Legislative and York Learning Center.
No report.
Mrs. Britton, PSBA.
In addition to the legislation that was passed out of both chambers in the House that would allow school boards to make the decision for athletics, that is expected to be vetoed by the governor, and I think mentioned previous discussions that they are looking to override that veto. The Republicans are. There are a few other issues that I just clicked off of. like right before I had them here. I apologize. So in addition to, that's the big legislative initiative, also additional COVID funding and how to drive that down to municipalities and other programs at the local level, including school districts. PSBA also worked with Senator Wayne Langerholt recently, who is the chairman of the Senate Education Committee, to introduce Senate Bill 1286, which would establish a waiver program that would provide public schools the flexibility and relief from many costly and unnecessary mandates. Certain mandates would not be waivable. And in working with the senator, they ask that the board members support the legislation and urge to move the issue forward. New state science standards are proposed. The State Board of Education recently gave its initial approval to propose new state science standards intended to replace the current standards that were enacted in 2002. The proposed standards will now move for further consideration and public comment through the regulatory review process, and the new standards will become effective for the 24-25 school year. And lastly, PSBA is asking for guidance on testing rules. The U.S. Department of Education recently indicated that no federal waivers from requiring testing will be granted for the 2021 school year. Many school districts operating in an all virtual or hybrid format, administering state assessments with appropriate security and monitoring will be impossible or impractical. With no federal relief available, PSBA has asked the Pennsylvania Department of Education to provide flexibility and guidance on how to administer assessments safely and securely. In the event that PDE does not take action or does not have the authority to act, PSBA will urge the General Assembly then to address these issues. Those are the major topics that PSBA has been sending. If anybody wants more specifics on any of those things that I just kind of gleaned over, feel free to ask. I'm happy to go into more detail.
Questions for Mrs. Brinton? Okay, thank you. Mrs. Herman, Dover Industrial Development Committee.
No report.
Okay, Superintendent's report, Mrs. Kroom.
Okay, in case you haven't heard, we're opening our middle school and high school tomorrow. I'm very excited for the kids to come and watch the buses come in. We're just real excited about it. I want to share this announcement I received the other day. So I'll read it to you. The National Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association is pleased to announce that Dave App, our own Dave App, head athletic trainer and assistant athletic director at the Dover Area School District, has been recognized by this association as a certified athletic administrator. To earn this distinction, David has demonstrated this highest level of knowledge and expertise in the field of interscholastic athletic administration. The voluntary certification process included a thorough evaluation of the candidate's educational background, experience, and professional contributions, as well as a rigorous, comprehensive written examination. He is one of an elite group of interscholastic athletic administrators nationwide to attain this level of professionalism. So I think this is awesome, and I think it is wonderful for our district. And then the last thing I have, I'd like to ask Dave and Troy to come up to the podium and update the board on the diving board situation that was brought out last month. If they would just kind of, I know I sent you an email, but I would like them to explain where we are and how we landed there.
Good evening. So the diving board situation got complicated. Let's just say it that way. We had a bunch of different people talking about it, and here's what it boiled down to. I have to look back at my notes because this was a couple weeks ago. There's two boards that kind of look at sports and make up rules for sports. One's the NCAA, which is National Collegiate Athletic Association, and the other is the NFHS, which is the National Federation of High School Sports. They both have different regulations. So when we started this process, we had one of the pool guys was looking at the NCAA and thinking it would be okay for high school sports, and then when we got into this, we found out it couldn't. The bottom line is, with two diving boards, we're about 11 to 12 feet from the wall and about 11 or 12 feet between each board. So you could literally have two people diving at one time, which you probably never would. To put three boards in, NCAA standards say you can be you can be a minimum of 8'3" from the sidewall and 8'3" to any other board, which meant we could put that across our 45-foot pool with no problem. Wouldn't be a big deal. National Federation of High School Sports says you need 10 feet to any sidewall and 10 feet between. So right away we ran out of room. The only way we could come back and put 3 diving boards in was to eliminate 2 of the starting blocks for regulation lap swimming, and they just decided that wasn't worth it. The other thing that ended up being some kind of controversy over the depth of the pool, which we knew we were going to have to go an inch deeper, which wasn't a problem, but then all at once it became, we had a diving well of 26 feet from the end wall out to where it starts to slope up. And if we go to a 3-meter board, National Federation of High School Sports says that now has to be 30 feet. So we would have had to dig 45 foot wide, another 6 feet out, and 8 feet deep. We'd have had to dig more dirt out. So it just started to become kind of overwhelming. So we got together, Troy and I and Tracy and Ross Spangler and I forget who else, but it was a couple of us. We got talking back and forth about this and just thought, it's just too complex, and it's not a high school sport. It would have been nice to have, would have been great to have, to get kids into that 3-meter board stuff, but it just turned out to be too much. So,
Yes.
you want to add anything? Go ahead.
In addition to the additional financial obligation, then it would have delayed the completion of the pool even another 3 to 4 weeks, which again, Coach Spangler was already like, we want the pool, we want to get the pool in there. So after he was presented with all the information and did not want to remove the use of the starting blocks for 2 of the 6 lanes, it was in agreement that it was not something that he wanted to pursue. But thank you very much for allowing us to even consider doing that.
Right.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Kroom? Okay, we'll move on to our miscellaneous category tonight. I did have a couple things I wanted to comment on. First, I have some thank yous. I wanted to thank Dr. Wiesling for all of his work on the athletic health and safety plan. I know that's not an easy task, and there's a million different opinions and thoughts on it, and I respect all of your work with that, and appreciate all that you've done with that with our students in mind. So thank you for your efforts there. I also wanted to thank Mrs. Allman for joining us tonight. This is her learning experience here to run our meetings for us with the technology, and I thought she did a great job for us tonight, so thank you, Amy, for being here and taking care of that. And then finally, I wanted to thank Mrs. Benko publicly. For those of you watching tonight, this is Mrs. Benko's last school board meeting with the district. Tomorrow is her last day with us. It has been a pleasure having her sit to my right here for many years now. I've had tremendous confidence in her and her abilities for our district. We are in a very strong financial position thanks to what she has done for us. But what's most important with this is that Jen has always thought about our position from what's best for our students within this district and what's best for our children, and found a way to make it happen. So I just want to commend you for all the work you've done for the district, and thank you for everything that you've done here. We truly appreciate your efforts for us, and wish you all the best in your new and exciting career up in Harrisburg, and good luck with that. So thank you, Jen, for all that you've done for us. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Anybody else have any other comments tonight?
One question, did they get the ad for the superintendent search out?
Yes, the ad, the update on that is that the ad went live today for the superintendent search, and we are going to go with a time frame that hopefully brings a candidate to us for approval at our December 3rd reorganization meeting. If we find that we need a little bit of buffer, we are going to schedule a board meeting for December 15th right now and get that publicly announced. We can always cancel that if we don't need the extra couple of days in there for that, but the idea is to push here. And I did talk to Mr. Pratt about having the overlapping, because under school code you can't have 2 superintendents. So the way we would handle this is that we would have the new person hired as an assistant to the superintendent, paid, for instance, on a per diem rate, and that would just be either a separate contract or an addendum to their contract to come in, which would allow that transition period with Tracy at that point. So yes, things are rolling with that as of today. The ad should be hitting, so hopefully we'll see some good applications for that. And I know we do have some interviews coming up in 2 weeks for our business manager. So, and in the meantime, again, thank you to Mrs. Lepo over here, who's going to serve as our interim business manager during this period of transition. We're glad she didn't run screaming out the door when Jen announced her departure. So, looking forward to working with you, Mrs. Lepo, too, on this stuff. So, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, with that, we have our last public comment period. Mr. Perkins, do we have anybody for that? Okay. Future meetings. Our next board committee meetings will be this Thursday at 6:00 p.m. Via Zoom for the public. And then our board planning meeting will be at 7 p.m. via live stream, as tonight's meeting was. So the board planning meeting is 7. Good. Okay. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, yes?
Yes.
Yes. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.